Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today I have something very special for you and very special for me because I got a chance to wear this and sample it, and it's all thanks to one of my good friends in the fragrance community, Jonathan. His YouTube handle is Jonathan1970, and he was kind enough to send me some samples of some very rare and very precious juice that there's no way I would have ever been able to smell otherwise. Today, we're doing an early impression on Ottoman Empire 2. Now, I will just say something before we get started. I never smelled very many Areej Dores other than I got a few samples from one of his later collections. I don't know the numbers, but it was the one with Gardenia, I think they called it, and a couple others, and I was not impressed from that collection at all. So I never got a chance to smell some of these older ones, but thanks to some other kind subscribers, Eddie, who goes by Jonathan B. Swift, sent me Siberian Musk, and if you go back through my channel, you'll find a first impression of this. This is one of the most amazing natural musk fragrances I've ever smelled. And Jonathan actually sent me Siberian Musk 2. So we will do a comparison video between these two one day of Areej Dore. So I'm starting to kind of understand the aesthetic of the brand. And these older fragrances, like the original Siberian Musk from 2007, and I want to say the original Ottoman Empire, or I'm sorry, 2017, the original Ottoman Empire, I believe, was also from 2017. This is a 2019 release. And I feel like 2020 is maybe when things started to go downhill for Areej Dore, but I don't have enough experience with the brand to say that for sure. Maybe the couple that I smelled just didn't impress me for this reason or that reason, but this absolutely blows my mind. What a beautiful composition this is. Heartbreakingly beautiful. I hope I have the words to do this fragrance justice. I'm going to do a fresh spray. This is an extrait de parfum, by the way. Okay, so this is a very long fragrance from what I can tell. It's been on my skin now for about 6 hours, and I'm in love with this fragrance. Absolutely in love with this fragrance. I'm going to try to do it justice, but before we get into what I think I get out of it, I just want to talk about the notes because, and I want to read a quick blurb from the brand. So Russian Adam describes Ottoman Empire as the essence of mysteries with a heart of extravagant richness, a character of unmatchable diversity, the blissful sensation of narcotic depth, and a soul-healing impact. So that's the way he describes Ottoman Empire 2. Oh, God. So here's the notes, and these notes are insane. The top notes are Jamaican pepper, cardamom, pure rose oil from Afghanistan. Count along with me, okay, with the pure rose oils and roses, because it's going to blow your mind. Pure rose oil from Afghanistan, Georgia, and Bulgaria, Indian Rose Absolute, and Thai White Rose. So that's 5 different types of roses. And the rose in this is, it's almost like, if you've ever heard Rich Mitch talk about being able to step into a fragrance, the rose in this just envelops you, you know, like you're in just a rose spacesuit. It's absolutely beautiful. And right now I'm just getting the oud, but the rose comes out in about 15 minutes. I'll talk about that later. The middle notes, you get an infusion of, I'm sorry, I forgot one top note, which is frangipani water freshly co-distilled by Russian Adam. So I'm guessing maybe he co-distilled it with Bortnikov, because Bortnikov also loves frangipani and uses it to perfection. One of the best, one of the absolute best frangipani uses that I've ever really come across is Bortnikov's use of frangipani. The middle notes: infusion of frangipani flowers, saffron attar aged over 20 years, 3 types of Indian agarwood oil. So that's the 3 types of Indian oud, including traces of an Assam oud that is nearly 2 decades old, clean Indian vetiver, cinnamon and nutmeg. The base is 7-year-old sandalwood from Bangladesh, Indian oak moss, crude amber resin oil, and sweet myrrh. Okay, so I just did a fresh spray 5 minutes ago. The oud is what really hits you initially. So what it starts off with, to me, is it starts off with this sour oud with this powdery chocolate smell in the background. That's what you get. If you remember, I also did a first impression on a fragrance called Russian Oud, and that kind of went into a bit of a gourmand facet. The oud in this, I actually like even better than the Russian Oud because it's not as gourmand. The chocolate features of this oud are kind of pushed to the background, if you will. So you get a little bit of skank. It is skanky. Indian oud does have some skank to it. It almost smells like a bit of rotting wood. It has that rotting wood feel, if you will, okay? But where this fragrance really turns and just completely took my breath away is about the 15-minute mark. You get this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, this rose begins to bloom. And to me, the oud in the beginning almost acts like a trumpet, like announcing the coming of one of the most amazing rose florals I've ever smelled in my life. And I know that these type of perfumers get a lot of flack for allowing the ingredients to kind of do the work. These are not French-trained perfumers. Russian Adam and Bortnikov are not French-trained perfumers, but the quality of the ingredients in this is just absolutely mind-blowing. I am completely blown away by this fragrance. It's one of the most beautiful things I have ever smelled, and I'm not just saying that. I get nothing out of it. I would love a bottle of this, but there's no way I'm paying $1,000 for 50 ml or 30 ml or whatever it is. But I would absolutely love to have a bottle of this. So you get this oud that kind of sets the stage, okay? It's the trumpet man who runs down the middle of the king's hall announcing the king's presence. And you get this, so the oud is setting the table for this gorgeous floral note to kind of shine through. And as the roses start to take over at about the 15 to 20 minute mark, the oud begins to kind of die down. So you have the florals picking up in intensity, and you have the oud kind of decreasing in intensity at the same time. And it's one of the most, that transition from about 15 to 20 minutes is the most important transition in the entire fragrance, because after that, all the transitions kind of go smooth and they take their time. But that initial transition from oud announcing the florals to the florals actually taking over the composition is the most direct shift into a different gear of this fragrance. The rest of it is very long. It's over time, if you will. Okay, so you don't get a big transition except for the first one so far on my skin. This is a 6-hour dry down, and the biggest transition by far is happening right now. It's so beautiful. It's so indolic too, but I'll get to that in a second, or I'll try to get to it. I hope I can get to everything. I made an entire page of notes, just so you guys know, and I probably could have went to a second page, but as a first impression, I figure that's more than enough. So what happens is you get the rose that kicks up in intensity at about the 15-minute mark, but other florals also begin to join the party, especially that frangipani, which almost gives the impression to me that you are sitting inside of a greenhouse. Have you ever been to like the botanical gardens and you go to a greenhouse and the greenhouse has like It has like condensation on the windows because of how humid and musty it is inside of there. That's what the frangipani adds to this fragrance. So you get the 5 different types of rose, okay? And then the frangipani adds this strange, almost like you're in the middle of a tropical rainforest. It's the most insane floral combination I can think of, but it works absolutely to perfection. And the rose feels so unique because of all the different aspects. Like I said, it has the Indian rose absolute, the Bulgarian, the Georgia, Afghanistan rose, Thai white rose. I couldn't tell you what all those roses smell like, but I can tell you the impression. It's starting to bloom now on my skin. The impression that it gives you is of the most realistic, like I said, like you're just coated in a rose outfit, and everywhere you turn you just get the most beautiful whiff of this amazing rose, which maybe in nature doesn't even smell this amazing, because he built this, accord, if you will, out of these 5 different types of roses. And the fragrance, as it begins to dry, so it starts out with the oud. So if you have some familiarity with the oud, you're familiar with the skank, you're familiar with, sometimes you get that chocolatey accord, if you will, different types of oud. But what ends up happening is, as it starts to dry and as the florals start to really come out, the consistency of the fragrance, in my mind, also tends to change. So what you get is you get this fragrance that in consistency, not necessarily in smell, it doesn't smell like honey, but the consistency of the fragrance feels like it switches from that oud opening to the florals, and then to this very honeyed, syrupy type consistency. So, but it never goes sweet. That's what I like about this fragrance, because most fragrances that could be built in the designer world or even in the niche world using naturals, right? Or using synthetics, if you will, and not naturals, or using some naturals like some niche companies do. I don't think they could build something like this, because the synthetics that they used would have to go kind of artificially sweet. So here, Russian Adam has found a way to create this syrupy, honey type texture, but keep it completely, to keep it completely fragranted, if you will. The smell of this fragrance feels like it's coming all from some of the most beautiful natural materials you've ever smelled, and none of them are synthetically sweet. If there is sweetness to it, it's just from the natural synthetics or the natural florals and oud and, amber resins and stuff like that you're getting. So due to the fact that there is no synthetic sweetness, I love that about this fragrance. And the transition just completely blows my mind. So now the oud has taken a back seat and the florals are really starting to amp up. It's so very good. And you get this, if you read the blog, Kafkesk, I believe she goes by, and she's a fantastic blogger. If you've never checked that Kafkesk blog out, you have to check her out. But she wrote an article that I read on the Russian oud that had that, that chocolatey oud type accord that I said that I really liked, but I don't love it as much as this. This is by far my favorite Areej Dore fragrance I've ever smelled, hands down. And with that one, she mentioned that you almost get this lava type feel, like the amber resins give off this molten lava type feel, like everything is warm and all that stuff. And you get a little bit of that in the base, but it's so much more complex. And the oud starts to kind of play peekaboo. So what I thought when I noticed that the oud was almost, announcing the presence of the florals ahead of time, I thought it was going to take a back seat and that was it. It was an intro. It's not. It comes back. The oud, the 3 different types of Hindi oud come back later on and they start to play peekaboo. Sometimes you smell and you get that oud coming back. Sometimes you smell and you think it's gone, and it's kind of the florals that have taken over. The beautiful rose absolutes. There's also jasmine in this, and it becomes very indolic. It almost feels like actually, I feel like, I'm not going to say it almost feels like, I feel like there's some of this natural musk in here. It has that musky type smell as it starts to dry. And that's some of the most beautiful musk I've ever smelled in my life. And you get that here. I would be shocked if there's no musk, even though it's not listed. That might almost be like a bit of a secret weapon for him, if you will. And one of the things that I personally like about this fragrance that I instantly took a shine to is there is a huge slug of oak moss in the base. So the oak moss gives off this vintage feel. You know, this feels like it could be Coty's Chiffre fragrance, or it feels like it could be, you know, a fragrance from Guerlain from the 1920s. It has that old school feel, not vintages in the 80s fragrances that we know and love, like Bel Ami or Fahrenheit. Vintage like 100 or 150 years ago. It has that vibe to it, and it's because there's a gigantic slug of oak moss in the base that comes later on in the dry down, and it really reminds you of fragrances from the past. You know, these oriental type fragrances of the past. And so there's this almost syrupy honey type jasmine that starts to come through. I mentioned the honey feel. There's this honeyed, syrupy jasmine that complements the frangipani and the rose. And if you don't like florals, though, I would still urge you to try to smell this, because the way that it's done, I have never, not even in Iquitos, have I smelled jasmine like this. It is an unbelievable, and your brain can almost focus on a note. Like if you want to smell jasmine, it's here. If you want to smell rose, it's here. If you want to smell oud, it's here. It has this, you know, like you can walk right into the center of this fragrance and start picking out notes. It's absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. And the last part about it, and you know, maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but he says it is oil, 7-year-old sandalwood oil from Bangladesh is what he says. If you told me there was real Mysore sandalwood in this, I would not bat an eye for even a second, because the sandalwood that kind of complements all this gives you this texture in my mind of like this lemon cake. So like, that's what good sandalwood should be. It should be smooth, it should be creamy, and it should almost give you like this, like buttery lemon cake is almost what I think about. Imagine getting one of those lemon cakes with kind of the holes in it. You know what I mean? Where, I don't know what you would call that type of lemon cake, but you know what I'm talking about. The cake itself looks like it kind of has holes in it. And imagine just taking a slab of butter and just melting it on top of it and kind of letting it seep into the lemon cake. That's what the sandalwood in this fragrance reminds me of. It's very spongy in texture, and if you told me it was Mysore sandalwood, I wouldn't bat an eye. Not once. Now, maybe it's not, but it smells extremely high quality, and the final trick, at least the final trick on my skin 6 hours in, that I can smell is the vetiver and the oak moss start to really come out and start to kind of play against each other. So you get this, so you get the beautiful oud in the opening, you get some of the most amazing florals you've ever smelled, and then the final trick is you start to get this beautiful green aspect to it all. So the oak, the moss, whether it's oak moss, tree moss, whatever he's using, it's probably not IFRA compliant, so there's a huge slug of it in here is what it feels like, gigantic. And it mixes with the vetiver in a way, and then the nutmeg and cinnamon, because there is this spicy aspect to it as well, that just kind of keeps everything in its place. Oh, So good. This is the type of perfumery that, you know, people who love perfume absolutely fall all over themselves for, as you can see, because this composition in perfumery today is dead. This will never happen at Dior or Chanel or any of the, you know, mass marketed firms, because they could never put something like this out. And that's the reason why there is a place for somebody like Russian Atom in today's perfume world. Now, all that being said, that's all the good. The bad is that if nobody sent this to me, if I didn't have a good friend named Jonathan who sent me a decant of this, I never would have smelled it, because I think there was something like 400 bottles made or 500 bottles made, and that's it. It's gone. You know, once the 500 bottles are sold, that's it. It's never being created again. He's moving on to the next one. Now, there is an Ottoman Empire 3, and I think there's even an Ottoman Empire 4 now. But they kind of got away from this, from my understanding. It's not, I'd love to smell the first one. I would fall all over myself to smell the first one. But, you know, this is bold. It's rich. It's dense. It's absolutely beautiful. He hit it on the head when he said, for his words, a heart of extravagant richness, blissful sensation, narcotic depth. The flowers give off this narcotic smell. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely unbelievably beautiful. So, again, the good is the good. This is a award-winning composition. Absolutely one of the most amazing things I've ever smelled. And now I'm kind of sad that I'll never have a bottle of this. But to be fair, on the other hand, when you talk about only 500 bottles produced for the entire world, just being able to even smell it is an absolute gift. And, you know, I kind of set this aside because I had an idea that this would be one of my favorites from listening to people talk. This is the original Ottoman Empire, by the way. The Wafts from the Lofts guys, if you ever watched their channel, is their favorite fragrance of all time, I think. Or one of the favorite Russian Atom fragrances of all time, I should say. And so I kind of had an idea that if people of that, you know, level of taste liked it, that it would be good. And boy, it has not disappointed at all. I was expecting way more oud and way less florals. The florals really took me back, you know, but I don't mind. I actually ended up completely loving it. So that's my take. I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to, and this hopefully this gives you a good insight into what this fragrance smells like, because you know, if you can get your hands on a bottle of the first or second edition of Ottoman Empire, I would recommend trying to get a sample and at least giving yourself the pleasure of smelling this once. So, you know, Jonathan was nice enough to give me a pretty decent amount, so I'll probably get another couple wears out of this decant. But boy, this is something that is absolutely a joy to smell. And I can't thank you enough, Jonathan, for sending these. I have so many other samples. I have 8 or 9 samples Rich Mitch sent me. I have samples that Eddie sent me. I still have samples that DL Qualia sent me. And then Duncan sent me some samples too that I have to dig into. But I don't only want to do these first or early impressions for you guys, so I'm trying to mix them in with other, you know, fragrance topics, other, you know, videos like this is not a top 10, or, you know, this year in perfumery, stuff like that. So I'm trying to kind of mix and match, but I do want to try to get through these because, wow, could you imagine just letting this sit on the shelf for months and not being able to smell this? I mean, I would say this was a landmark in kind of my fragrance journey and the stuff that I've smelled. This is a this is a waypoint. I mean, if you've smelled this, it's very hard to kind of step back into wearing something like Sauvage or Bleu de Chanel, or it's so multifaceted, amazing depth. And then you think about the fact that this is someone who is not trained in perfumery. I would just absolutely love to see maybe like a duet with someone like Russian Adam and Dominique Ropion, or Jean-Claude Elena and Bortnikov, or something like that. I mean, that would be the most amazing thing if they could use their materials, and if they could put some of their insight into French perfumery and inject some of that, breathe some of that life into these natural materials, because wow, I mean, that would be pretty close to the mountaintop of perfumery. If you could get these materials with Jean-Claude Elena or Dominique Ropion or whoever you would like, Thierry Vasser, and let him or her go to work on trying to build something amazing with this. So we're under half an hour, which for my video is short, but I would say every word in this was hopefully meaningful. And I hope you've enjoyed this first impression. This is one of the best first impressions that I would say I've had a chance to do, outside of maybe Teatra alla Scala, and then this Siberian Musk, which is one of the most amazing musk fragrances I've ever smelled. This and Musk Habib from Bortnikov are the two most amazing natural musk fragrances I've ever smelled. And I will be doing a comparison video between Siberian Musk, the original, and Siberian Musk 2, just to give you guys a, quick breakdown. I don't know if there will be much of a difference, or, if the composition changed much from year to year. But, so again, this was sent to me by Eddie and Jonathan. Thank you guys. Thank you to everyone who's kind of sent me these. I've really been blessed with the subscribers and feedback, and, most of the people who subscribe to my channel, they're not worried about all the other ancillary stuff. They're worried about the perfume, and that's what I love. So cheers, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.